right, foot to the football as we kick off another brand new day here from the heart of the country, from Studio G. Fighting for you for the foxhole of freedom like I do every single day. I'm glad to have you on board the Steve Gruber Show. Who do you want in your foxhole? Honestly, who do you want there when things hit the fan and it's time to figure out how to get things done? Think about that. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, 5 people now arrested in Cincinnati after a number of white people were attacked by groups of black assailants over the weekend in what appeared to be racially motivated violence. Number 2, the Trump administration thumbing its nose at climate panicans and tree huggers with a move to reopen massive offshore exploration in California. America first is the message. And number 3, President Trump is raking in the wins on the trade front. The latest deal with the European Union serving as the crown jewel. In 75 minutes away from the cameras, Trump secured and finished an additional $600 billion in investment from the EU and a promise to buy $750 billion of American energy, mostly liquefied natural gas. The EU is opening up their markets to American goods, dropping most tariffs to 0, while the U.S. will collect a 15% across-the-board tariff on European goods. The TDS media doesn't even know how to respond. They asked EU President Ursula von der Leyen what the U.S. is conceding in this deal because it seems too good to be true. Her response, here it is. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the EU Commission President. What are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up in the deal, if anything?
So the starting point was an imbalance, a surplus on our side and a deficit on the U.S. side. And we wanted to rebalance the trade relation. And we wanted to do it in a way that trade goes on between the two of us across the Atlantic, because the two biggest economies should have a good trade flow between us. And I think we hit exactly the point we wanted to find. Rebalance, but enable trade on both sides, which means good jobs on both sides of the Atlantic, means prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic, and that was important for us.
Yeah, there you go. Good jobs, both sides of the Atlantic. Trump is leveling the playing field with a bulldozer. And the media is having to reluctantly admit it's a win. It's a huge win. After calling his Scotland visit nothing more than a taxpayer-funded golf trip. That's what they did at first. Well, hell of a golf trip. Talk about a hole-in-one. This is from the Financial Times. Quote, there is no hiding the fact that the EU was rolled over by the Trump juggernaut, said one ambassador. Trump worked out exactly where our pain threshold is. Yeah, he did. Here's CNN forced to report on it as well, which I can tell you they hate. Listen to this.
Isabel, the bottom line is this is the biggest trade deal in President Trump's effort to effectively reshape the global trading order. That has been one of his central priorities since taking office in January. He's been issuing many threats of tariffs, but they clearly have been working in terms of bringing other countries, allies, and adversaries alike, in some cases, to the negotiating table. And the latest example was today here in Scotland when the leader of the European Commission, who of course is negotiating for the European Union, she agreed to a 15% across-the-board tariff. Now that is significantly higher than the 10% tariffs in existence now, but it's much lower than the 30% threat that was coming on Friday and the 50% threat that was made in May. So clearly there has been an instance where the president has been using his threats of higher tariffs as a negotiating tactic, and in this case it certainly worked.
Yeah. It has to be a huge win. It has to be. If Chicken Noodle News can't even figure out how to spin this into a negative press day, they can't. It's a huge win for Donald Trump, for this country, for America. Most Democrats refuse to concede that Trump knows what he's doing, exactly what he's doing, choosing instead to resort to the talking point that any tariff we impose on another nation is bad, which really just has to do with Orange Man bad and that whole worldview. But look, they're coming into line. Bill Maher, at the very least, starting to realize that Donald Trump might just know exactly what he's doing when it comes to trade dominance. He, too, like CNN, forced to admit what he couldn't deny. Here it is.
Tariffs. Now, I remember along with probably most people, were saying at the beginning, oh, you know, by the 4th of July, somebody had to think how the country was, the economy was going to be tanked by then. And I was kind of like, well, that seems right to me. But that didn't happen. Now, it could happen tomorrow. I'm just saying that's reality. So let's work first from the reality of that, not from I just hate Donald Trump. Because that's boring and doesn't get us anywhere and leads you to dishonesty. Because the truth is, I don't know what his strategy is. But look, the stock market is at record highs. I know not everybody lives by the stock market, but I also drive around. I don't see a country in a depression at all. I see people out there just living their lives. And I would have thought, and I got to own it, that that these tariffs were going to sink this economy by this time, and they didn't.
Bill Maher finally telling the truth. They didn't. Imagine that, dealing in facts. It's something that the rest of Bill Maher's party can't seem to wrap their heads around. But world leaders everywhere are lining up to deal with the facts and make a deal. The UK's prime minister met with President Trump yesterday, eager to hash out his own deal, probably in part because the EU has honestly been labeled a humiliation for European countries. Man, in France, they're hopping mad. Now we've seen the UK trying to get its own deal on the table. And Trump says that's fine by him. It strengthens alliances between the U.S. and the U.K. even further. This, after a historic trade deal was struck with Japan just a few days ago. You see, it's one giant deal after another. That one included almost $600 billion investing in the U.S. on behalf of Japan, aimed at revitalizing American energy production, semiconductor research, critical minerals mining, and more, while expanding market access for American producers in agriculture, energy, and manufacturing. Of significant note, Japan is going to increase imports of American rice by 75%. That's huge for a country that already has their own rice industry. They're going to buy $8 billion worth of American food in the meantime. Good news. And what's really neat, he's using more than just reclaiming fair trade. He's actually using it to settle wars around the world as well. Listen to this.
If I weren't around, you'd have right now 6 major wars going on. India would be fighting with Pakistan. You see what we just did yesterday with 2 nations that we're trading with. And during the trade, I said, I'm not going to do any trade deal unless you guys settle your differences. And we got it settled in 24 hours. I mean, they just announced it was settled, which is a tremendous thing. But Serbia, Kosovo is another one. We have many hotspots that were at war. I think a very big one was India and Pakistan, because you're talking about 2 nuclear nations. That was a very big one. But
yeah, there it is. The most recent ceasefire that he spoke of course, between Thailand and Cambodia. Days of deadly fighting on the border had already killed dozens, but like Trump said, he put a stop to that quickly and effectively by saying, look, we'll do trade deals with you, but not if you're at war. If you're fighting, no trade deal. What happens? They say, hey, let's get a trade deal. It's like the war between Rwanda and Congo. Comes to an end after 30 years. And he's not done yet. We got a lot more to talk about here. These trade deals are far-reaching, have big implications, and when CNN and Bill Maher have to admit the truth that they're great deals for America and nobody else, well then, something good is going on. This is the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you on board the Truth Train. We'll be right back. Like I said, Donald Trump's not done yet. Apparently, feeling emboldened by his success, he issued this admonition to President Putin yesterday as well, saying, look, you need to get this war done now. Listen to this.
I would have said 5 times we would have had a deal. I've spoken to President Putin a lot. I got along with him very well. But 5 times, and every time 4 times maybe. But we've had discussions. You and I have had discussions. Yeah. We thought we had that settled numerous times. And then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. And I say, that's not the way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen.
Well, we'll see. He's reducing that timeline to 2 weeks, by the way, 2 weeks. And if he said that doesn't happen, he will add severe sanctions on Russia's key trading partners. We'll see how that turns out. It's not the first time that Trump has expressed his disappointment in Putin, but we've yet to see any meaningful attempts at peace out of this effort. Maybe Trump can use his momentum to change that. We'll see. But there's another angle on this whole trade front, and that's our trade war with China, of course. As Trump strengthens alliance after alliance with all of these trading partners, in fact, the EU deal it's a mega deal. It's the biggest of all. He's really tightening the screws on China as a result, where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is right now trying to hammer out a trade deal with them before an August 12th deadline. Here was Bessent on the situation before he headed out of town. Listen.
Trade is in a good place, and I think we're going to be able to move on to the bigger issue of China needing to rebalance. It is the most imbalanced, unbalanced economy in the history of the world. They now account for 30% of global manufacturing. That's unsustainable. They have a real estate downturn. Many would call it a crisis. Manufacturing has slumped, and they can't export their economic problems to the rest of the world. They need to solve them. One of the ways to solve them is to create a consumer economy.
Yeah. With these other trade deals, Trump is very effectively reducing not only our dependence, but Europe's dependence as well on Chinese markets, which is a good thing, you see. If we make them dependent on our markets and not Chinese markets, we win. You win. Everybody wins. If you notice, a lot of these deals involve some kind of investment in semiconductor research and critical minerals, which is where China really has a stronghold right now. But Trump is laying the groundwork and laying it fast to bring our competition in those markets up. China is losing its leverage, and it's growing more and more isolated. It relies heavily on its exports, almost exclusively. But the countries with the most purchasing power, the U.S. and the EU, are looking to make a change, and it's high time. China relies on stolen intellectual property and unethical child labor, among other things, to get a leg up on trade. But hopefully, Secretary Bessent, in his visit this week, could pull in the reins in a way that serves American interests. While we wait on that, Trump doesn't rest. He says he has a plan to slash prescription prices by as much as 30 to 80% through an executive order he'll be signing today, about 9 o'clock this morning. Trump posted to Truth Social yesterday about how embarrassingly expensive U.S. drugs are because we subsidize the research and development costs for the rest of the world. Trump says, well, no more. He wrote, quote, campaign contributions can do wonders, referring to Big Pharma's sneaky support of many candidates. But he says, not with me and not with the Republican Party. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to cut prescription prices. That's what I voted for, doing the right thing, by the way. He's done it with the EU. I'm confident he'll do it with China. He's doing it with Big Pharma. It's just another big win after another win after another big win. Meanwhile, here at home, Donald Trump had talked about a rebate, and now Senator Hawley of Missouri is putting pen to paper on that. What would that mean? Well, if you're an individual making less than $75,000, it would mean $600 to you, and $600 to every person in your household. If you're an individual, if you're a $112,000 earner and you're the head of household, you'll get $600 checks. $150,000 joint household income for joint filers. So there's money to be had here. It's a big deal. Hawley introducing this legislation. Hawley also co-authored the legislation created COVID-19 pandemic stimulus checks in 2020, alongside independent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, which provided Americans up to $1,200 to help with financial hardships created by the pandemic. But, of course, they are phased out when you get to a certain income level. The rebate check for those who make more than that would be reduced by 5%, it says. So we'll see. Will there be checks coming for everybody? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe this money just goes right back into the economy. Maybe. But the point of this is that there's good news overseas with the EU deal. Good news here because of tariffs. All these tariffs that the Democrats kept telling you were going to destroy the economy, ruin America, send inflation soaring. Well, none of that turned out to be true, now did it? When Trump said, I've got this, I know what I'm doing, well, he was right. Speaking of Big Pharma, by the way, did you know that 60 million Americans have parasites? Now, that's a frightening number, isn't it? They invade your body when you don't know it, wreaking havoc on your gut, your energy level, even your brain and mainstream medical system. They don't want you thinking about this because one great cleanse can change your life and, well, you won't need them as much anymore. So the Wellness Company has a solution for you. Ivermectin and mebendazole. FDA-approved parasite solutions now combined in one cleanse combo. Just fill out a brief medical intake form. Get your 3-month supply. Lots of parasite cleanses are all over social media, but not the gold standard. Maha's officially here. The wellness company is making hard-to-get medications accessible to you so you can live your best life. All you need to do, go to twc.health/Gruber, twc.health/Gruber. You can find out more. You'll save $60 off the package and get free shipping as well. Don't wait. Cleanse your body today. twc.health/Gruber. When we come back, we're going to have a conversation about Chinese espionage and national security. And then later we're going to talk about your money. The stock market doing exceptionally well right now. Are you on that train? Well, we're going to check into it after this. Glad to have you here. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.